afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Center for Teaching and Learning webinar this afternoon. Our topic for today is Women in Leadership and how to stand out and how to shine with Dr. Candice Howell, an NCU alum. I'm Claire DeMarco. I'm the director for the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I will start with a couple of housekeeping items before we turn it over to Dr. Howell. We definitely encourage questions and comments during the presentation today, and you can use the chat feature to go ahead and utilize that for any questions or comments. In addition, the presentation is being recorded, so if you want to check it out later or you think there's someone else that might benefit from the content, definitely let them know it's being recorded and give us 24 hours and we will have it up in the Commons in our webinar area. Other than that, I think that's got everything covered. So I will hand it over to Dr. Howell.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm enjoying being part of this series again. So we wanted to pick a topic that we thought would be beneficial to our students and alum that might be checking this out. Yeah, like she mentioned, I'm an alum from NCU. I completed my business, my doctorate in business. My emphasis was marketing. And yeah, so this January will be 2 years since I completed. So it's wild that that much time has gone by. So I'm going to get right into my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. And give me just a moment and I will pull that up. And like she mentioned, we will have time for lots of questions at the end. And I'll answer all those for you guys. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So again, my name is Dr. Candice Howell. My current position is I'm an assistant vice president. I'm the dean of arts and sciences at a 2-year technical college in South Carolina in a little area called Myrtle Beach. You might have heard of it. So my path, as I'm going to share to you, into the leadership role that I'm currently in today has been a very interesting one. I wouldn't say by any means that is a traditional path, because in leadership, I don't think there is a traditional path. I think it's what you make of it, and that's what we're going to talk about. So in my role specifically at the college right now, just to share with you, as the Dean of Arts and Sciences, we have about 7,000 students. I have 67 full-time faculty members in my area, and a total of 142 when you include my adjunct faculty as well. So you can imagine leading an amazing group of 142 people has its challenges, but I'm going to tell you how I do it and how I've done it successfully. I'm very proud of my team, and the reason I am where I am today is because of my team, and that has to do with my leadership style. So that's me in this really cool magazine that I was recently allowed to be in. They graced me by letting me be in this cool magazine. And I was nominated actually by my peers here at the college for this particular magazine, and leadership was part of the role in being nominated for that, as well as style. So it had to do with stylish leaders. So just to give you an idea of my path to leadership. So I am an athlete, have been an athlete my whole life. As an athlete, you learn a lot of team building skills. So those of you out there who've ever been an athlete, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you work on a team, you have to lean on each other, and leadership is very much so part of that process. So from 2002, when I was an athlete and student, all the way to today, 2020, as an assistant vice president and academic dean, I've come a long way. I've done a lot of different things over the years, but I believe that everything led me to exactly where I am today and truly prepared me for that. From reporting and anchoring at the local ABC affiliate here in Myrtle Beach, that's where I landed right out of college. That was my first big girl job, if you will, to the director of marketing position that I had after that, all the way through. My path to education didn't happen until about 10 years ago. I was working in marketing and PR, but I still had a side TV gig as a host at the NBC affiliate here locally. And I interviewed a gentleman at Coastal Carolina University and had some friends over there, and I was chatting with him about, I've always, been a part of interning and mentoring students that would work in my different positions. I asked him, how do I get into teaching? I really feel like that's something I could be passionate about one day. And he said, well, why don't you come be a guest lecturer in one of my classes 10 years ago? And the rest is history. So I still teach for Coastal Carolina University as well. I teach public relations, marketing courses, and some communications courses as well. Almost 8 years ago, I started working here at Horry Georgetown, and I was a professor and the chair of the business and marketing department here and taught those classes, and then eventually just rose. So how do you rise in leadership positions? What makes a good leader? Great question. I tell my students this all the time. So this little guy here on the left, he's a chameleon, right? So why are chameleons important in leadership? They're important in leadership because really good leaders, if you look at strong leaders, especially female leaders, I think they do this the best. And some of my guy counterparts could absolutely tear me apart on that probably. But we adapt in life really, really well. And in leadership, being able to adapt to a new position, a new responsibility, a new job, all of those things are so very important in leadership. And you have to do it with ease. You can't let anybody know that you are scared out of your mind about this new role that you are about to take. You have to have confidence. I remember a couple of positions that I applied for. I remember specific questions about, do you have experience in this? Okay, so the answer should never be, oh, no, absolutely not. It's, you know, I don't have exact experience in that, but I've done this and I could see how I could learn that and I would be happy to take that on and master that. Do you see what I did there? I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. It's about finesse, right? So it's about faking it till you make it sometimes in leadership and proving to yourself that you can do it. Now, that's not to say take on a responsibility that you know you can't do. Don't do that. But with leadership, it's about not being afraid of the unknown, not being afraid to take chances, and not being afraid to build a team around you that does know how to do it. Okay, so even if you don't know how to do it, maybe someone on your team knows how to do it, and then together as a team, you all can do it. Multitasking is huge, and being responsive and leading by example. This one I want to talk about for a minute. There is nothing worse than having a leader that tells you what to do, but you know would never be willing to do it themselves, especially when it's a tough task. So I am proud to tell you that that is something that has made me very strong as a leader. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, that I ask my team to do that I would not do myself or have not already done. There are so many times. I'll give you a good example. So this summer at the college that I work at, we had, obviously with COVID, everything changed. We couldn't have on-campus advising. Everything went virtual, right? So we decided to do this virtual advising process, and I got a great team of some of my best faculty together to do advising. And so we split the schedule apart, and they were going to be available in these blocks of time. Got them a stipend, so they were being paid extra to make it worth their while. That's another thing. Don't just ask them to do more. Pay them for it if you can. It makes it go a lot further. So I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to schedule myself a block of time as well. Advising has always been one of my favorite things. Not everybody loves it, but I do. So I told my faculty, I said, look, I'll take Friday, you guys take these other days, and we split it all up. And I remember one of them saying to me, I can't believe you actually did that with us. And I said, well, why not? I'm asking you to do it. And that's something that means something to them, okay? So that's important. Compassion and empathy. Problems are going to happen. In leadership, inherently, there are lots of things that occur that are not fun to deal with. You have to deal with reprimanding and disciplinary issues. But there's a way to do it where you can have that mutual respect for the person that you're dealing with, but also make them understand that this is a situation that has to happen. It's not fun for anybody. But you come into it with compassion and empathy, and you also come into it with respect. The next one's huge for me. Be a go-getter. The person that does the bare minimum is probably not going to make the best leader. The person who says, so I'm really interested in learning more about that, or could you show me how to do this? I don't know how to do it yet. I know I don't have to do it, but I'd really like to know how. That's the makings of a great leader. That's the makings of a person who wants to go above and beyond. Leaders have to be able to go above and beyond. You got to be able to prove that you can do things beyond your normal duties, and you can do the projects that nobody else wants to do. That's the truth of the matter. You also have to have those tough discussions, and you've got to have thick skin. One of the biggest things I also think is important in leadership is being a good umbrella. And I think that this is one of the things that women do really well too, is that nurturing piece, right? So being a good umbrella. So if I know that I can handle a problem without involving 10 people and upsetting them, what do you think I should do? Handle the problem, right? So that I don't put it on them. But also nurturing the folks around me and on my team to understand that when there is a problem, we can do this. It's not me throwing them into the fire. It's me saying, hey, I'm going into the fire with you. We'll do this together. Surrounding yourself, that's huge, with the best possible talent. I always tell people that I hire people that I know are as good as me or better. And the reason why, and I can always sense it when I'm interviewing someone, the reason why is because that's what I want to surround myself with, because they're going to fire me up to be better. And when someone leaves your team, don't be upset with them for leaving your team. That's hard for leaders, right? To lose their rock stars. I'm never excited. I'm always happy for people. It stinks at the time when you get somebody in a position that you just love working with them. They're great. And now you're thinking, oh my gosh, who's going to handle that specific thing that nobody else wants to do? Well, you know what? Somebody else will come along and step up and prove that they want that leadership role as well. So what are the qualities, right? Empower, support, innovate, all these, challenge, inspire. Look at this quote. So I love this, right? So great leaders find ways to connect with their people and help them fulfill their potential. So I always ask my folks this question: where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? And a lot of times, some of them, they have a plan kind of in their mind, but they're afraid to say it out loud, right? So for my people, they're faculty members. They're looking to maybe move up to assistant chair, maybe move up to the chair position, or maybe they want to move up to a staff position, or maybe they want my job. Cool, tell me, that's fine. Because I want to move up eventually too, so that's okay. The thing is, I think people are afraid to tell you what they really want. They're afraid to tell their leadership, to tell their boss, hey, I do want to move up. I do want more responsibility. You really have to challenge them to share that with you. So I mentioned in a previous slide to be responsive. There's nothing worse, absolutely nothing worse in leadership to feel lost, confused, and to not know what the plan is. Let's talk about COVID for a second. We made so many changes at our institution that I'm sure lots of people out there at their different jobs and responsibilities, they had to change on a dime. Did you ever feel for a second that you didn't have all the information and no one told you what was going on? You were wondering constantly about what's going on? That's the worst feeling. That is a morale killer is what that is. It's really important to communicate and be responsive. When you know information, share it with your team. If it's something you can share, share it. And even if you have to explain, I don't have all the details yet, but here's what I'm told is coming to us. Here's what I'm told that we can do. When I get something, my team gets it, because I want them to have the same information I have so that they feel in the know, they're empowered, they can make changes. Nobody likes to do things at the last minute. So that being flexible is really important as well. But again, there's the line there. So be willing to do anything that you're asking your people to do. That's huge. It speaks volumes. I remember in retail years ago when I was in college, working a retail job, trying to make ends meet in school. I had this boss that, we had to change those displays all the time. And if anybody's ever worked in retail, that is not fun. And we would work as late as you can imagine at night putting up those displays. I had a boss that would sit in this chair and eat her dinner and hang out and just watch us do all these things. And the assistant manager too, he would sit with her. And they would just watch us do all these things. We could have gotten it done so much faster if they would have just pitched in and helped. So it's things like that that can really impact a team. When we have a win, and I say we, because I don't have a win, I don't do things on my own, I do things with my team. So when we have a win, I celebrate with my team. And when I share it with my boss, she shares it with her boss, it's not, well, Dr. Howell got this done. It's Dr. Howell and her division and all those amazing people, they got this done. And I would rather than say my division before my name. I would prefer that if it was possible. Because I really feel like if you share that great news and that glory with people and tell them about what your team is doing, it empowers them to want to do more for you. They want to work harder. So let's talk about terrible leaders. I know you know a few. I know you're probably visualizing someone's face in your mind right now. I can tell you a lot of funny stories, but I'm not going to. Maybe a couple. Okay, so terrible leaders. What not to do. Look at this guy. Man, I can feel the pain of that poor little person under all of those papers going, oh my gosh, not again. They couldn't even finish the last project you gave me. Please don't give me another project. If you could see me right now, I'm actually acting this out. So how you treat people, it matters, and it speaks volumes, and people talk, as you know. And that's what you don't want to become, is a terrible leader. You want to be the leader that everybody wants to come work for. That's what you really want. So talking down to people or at people, this is like the worst, when you're trying to explain yourself and they interrupt you 10 times and you feel like, like an inch big because they won't even let you finish your sentence. Don't do that. Don't belittle people. The boss who overreacts to like everything before they have all the information. This is so bad. So horribly bad. I think the biggest thing with terrible leadership is you feel like you are being bullied and you feel like you're not allowed to share the crazy stuff that you're going through with anyone because you're really worried about retaliation. And that is not okay. And everybody's been there. It's awful. But when you become a leader, don't let the title, regardless of what it is, don't let the title and the pay raise that you might have gotten with it change who you are. Make people feel appreciated. Don't unappreciate them. That's awful. It's an awful feeling. Bad decisions, right? So they're going to happen. Don't fail to make decisions. That's a huge one. I think a lot of times when you teeter-totter and you won't make a decision, it drives people even more crazy than if you just made a bad decision. Just make a decision and be responsive. So we're back to that again. Let people know. Don't be a bad communicator. That's the other piece. Have you ever felt like you were on eggshells walking into someone's office and you're scared to death to have to come in and tell them whatever it is that you have to tell them? Well, they've made you feel like you can't come talk to them. You're completely unapproachable at that point. And that person does not want to come speak with you. They'd rather go hide in a corner and not talk to anyone because you've made them feel so horrible. This is a terrible, terrible culture to have. Okay, so how do you get noticed? Now we're to that. I've told you what to do and not to do. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But getting noticed. So the biggest thing with getting into leadership roles is just standing out and shining as a person that people want to work with. That's the bottom line, really. Are you somebody that people come to and talk to about things? That's a key right there. That means you're trustworthy. That means you're a person who is understanding, or they just want to bounce things off of you. That's a very good sign. Be the go-to person for projects. When no one else raises their hand and there's been an uncomfortable silence in a meeting, be the person that goes, I'll do it. Even if you don't know how to do it, just do it. You'll figure it out. If you have that, like go-getter attitude, that is going to stand out. Now, be careful. Don't be the only person who's ever doing the extra things, because that becomes not fair as well. Being a team player is huge. I will tell you that one of the worst situations I've had is having someone in a leadership role underneath me that was not a team player. It is very difficult to manage a personality when they're leading other people and they are not on the same page with you with a leadership style. So perfect example with COVID, right? So there's lots of things that we're having to change and do. These are not things that the college has decided necessarily, but they're things that the health department has decided that we have to do. So kind of important to follow the health department's rules. But when you have someone that is constantly complaining or questioning in a leadership role, it has to be dealt with. It has to be handled. So you have to talk to that person and say, hey, look at, we all need to be on the same page with this, because you're leading people who are looking to you to understand and feel okay about what they're now responsible for doing. So we all have to have the same message. It's okay to question things, but there is a time and a place and a correct way to do it. In a Teams call with 100 people is probably not the right place to be like, hey, I don't agree with this. I don't think we should do it. That's a disaster. So Teams is like Skype, by the way, if you don't use it. It's a really great application. So be present, be a team player. That's huge. Have a great attitude. Okay, we all have bad days. It is okay to have a bad day. But in leadership, sometimes you have to hang up the bad day and you kind of have to put your best face on, even though you're having a really bad day. So today here at my school, it was our first day of classes. It was a great day, but it was also a wild day with a lot of different things that had me going in about 2,000 different directions. But you know what? You make a list, you handle what you can handle, and you're a taskmaster, and that's a leader. So you just get through it, and you do it with a smile on your face. And when you're frustrated, you don't take it out on people. You just can't. And then be dependable. It's so important to be dependable. My people know it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. They can text me, they can call me, they can email me. They just need to talk, whatever it is. I do something that is a little unique. My boss does it here too at the college, and I actually stole it from her. So it's not that unique, I guess. But it's called Walking Around Time. And it started out with me popping on to different campuses, and then she and I decided we were going to put these in our schedules. So what it is I spend a certain amount, because we have 3 campuses here, I spend a certain amount, and so does she, every week of walking around. And what we do is we walk around and we check on our people. Just talk to them. Just, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? What's happening? You know, we don't want them to feel like we don't know who they are. And I'll get to that in a moment. So staying off the no-no radar, as I like to call it. It's the no-no behavior radar. That's when you become one of those people within a team that's a complainer or doesn't want to do anything extra, it won't cover for somebody else, but they want everyone else to cover for them. They gossip, they stir the pot, all these things. Miss deadlines. They're unapproachable. Nobody wants to work with them. I'm going to tell you that if you're trying to promote for a position in leadership at the organization where you currently work and you are on the no-no radar, you're not going to get the job. So the question is probably going to be, well, how do I get off the no-no radar? You start doing the standout, shiny things that I mentioned. That's how you get off the no-no radar. People can change. I truly believe that. Someone can be one way 5 years ago and be a completely different way now. So it's important to also give second chances to people. But be careful. You have to be sure that they legitimately can rise to the occasion and take on that role and be great at it, because they're going to be leading other people. So here's what helped me the most. And this was huge for me as a woman, new in a community, all the way through the different stages of my career. I'm going to show you my mentors in a moment. And if Dr. Bakari is watching this, she will see her picture. That's right, I did use it. So finding a mentor in leadership is really important. And I've really had mentors my whole life. I did not include them all on my next slide because we'd be here all night. But mentors for me are different people in my life who have taught me things about being a leader or have made me stronger so that I could take on leadership roles. And they start with some of my college faculty. But mentors can help guide the way and help you avoid potential career mistakes. But it is up to you to utilize the mentor, to seek out the mentor. Sometimes they find you, which has happened to me, and then sometimes I found them. So it just really depends. But the key is, once you feel like you've seen somebody who you kind of look at as the leader you'd like to be, my advice to you is to grab onto that person, get to know them, and let them know, you know, I really like the way you do things. I really am impressed with you. And I would love if you would consider mentoring me. It's the biggest compliment that any leader can have, to want someone to mentor them. So, you know, once you select one that is positive and driven and they motivate you to want to succeed, that's where you know you have hit the jackpot. And be a sponge, right? So soak up everything you possibly can from this person and watch them, not in a weird way, guys, but watch them and watch the way they lead and watch their style and the things that they do. I just told you a moment ago that my boss did something amazing, so I started doing it too, changed it a little bit and made it my own. So it's okay to do those kinds of things. That's a compliment to that person. And it's you saying, hey, I see you and I love what you do. And I think it's great the way you connect with people. You know, I have some amazing leaders in my life still to this day that, you know, I was working with one of them today that you'll see in a moment. And, you know, she has these great moments that she calls teachable moments. And that's what has really helped me become a very strong dean and a very strong assistant vice president of the institution that I'm at. And I'm not stopping in the position that I'm at. I would love to continue to grow and evolve and ascend as high as I can. But if I retire in the position that I'm in right now, I love the work that I do every day. I get out of bed and I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. If you have not taken one thing away from this presentation so far, is I am high energy. I am always on the go, always on the move. People ask me all the time, what do you put in your coffee? And I put positivity in my coffee. I just go. And my career is focused on helping students and supporting my faculty so that they can help our students. So here's my mentors. These people mean the world to me. So all the way on the right is probably one of my earlier mentors. That's Carvin Eason. He is a professor of broadcasting and communications at SUNY Brockport in upstate New York. Wonderful man. I watched him as I transferred in from a school just like the one I teach at now as a junior, and I played field hockey and ran track for this school. And this man grabbed onto me real early. And he said to me, he said, you're going to be a great leader one day, Candice. And I said, why do you think that? And he said, well, he's like, you're a spitfire. He's like, there's nothing that challenges you that you aren't willing to just figure it out. He's like, you'll just figure it out. What I loved about him and what I took away from my relationship with him was that he connected with people. He was a people connector. He would find things that he could help them with, and he would get to know, he knew every one of his students. It was so impressive. And he didn't just know us by name. He knew that I was, at the time, Candice Smith, who was a right wing on the field hockey team, and that I loved working at the radio station on campus. And I was one of the DJs, and I did color commentating for the ice hockey team. He knew these little pieces about me, so he made me feel special, see? So it made me really just cling to him to say, okay, what can you teach me? He made me a very good writer. He challenged me that way. The gentleman all the way to the left is a dear, dear friend of mine and one of my first mentors here at the institution that I work at now. He was actually my dean when I got hired here, and he has since retired. That's Dr. Phil Render. He's also a city councilman. He's the person that said, what's next, Candice? What else do you want to do? I can tell that you're going to grow and evolve and change. And he's the one that convinced me to work on my doctorate. I was scared of it. It was later in life. I had been putting it off. And he said, what are you waiting for? And he gave me that swift kick that I needed. Dr. Bakari, she was my dissertation chair after a relatively rocky start with that process. And I am so grateful and so thankful. And you want to talk about making me a better writer. APA grammar, right there, APA, all that. She taught me so much, and she really pushed for me when I was done pushing for myself. If you've been through that process, it's rigorous, and you have to keep going, and she helped keep me on track, and I will be eternally grateful to her. The gal in blue, that is Dr. Marilyn Murphy. She's my president here at the college, and she is my current mentor, and she is fantastic. She is my gal that gives me the teachable moments. She's the one that drives and pushes me. You want to talk about women in leadership. Ladies, if you're looking, look closely at that face. She has worked every job at this institution that you can imagine. Nothing is beneath her. She brought me transcripts for a student a few hours ago and said, help me help this student. She is available to everyone. She is connected to the community. She lives and breathes this college mission, and I aspire to lead like she does because she leads with grace, poise, and confidence, and she knows her stuff. You want to talk about some of the most difficult situations we've been in with COVID-19. She has led us through that fire, and I'm just grateful to work for her. So How do I get into leadership? So you're not in leadership now, but you want to move up. So the key there is to seek out positions you're actually qualified for and apply. Now, when you're looking for leadership positions, or you're looking to go into a new job maybe that's different than what you've done before, you have to really read the description and decide, can I do this job? Sometimes they don't always give you all the information, but if it's something that you think you've done similar things, go after it. Just because you don't have all the pieces of the description doesn't mean you can't do the job. But make sure you're qualified with credentials and things like that. Otherwise, they won't give you a look. Showcase everything that you've done. Recommend, if you can start where you are now and try to move up there first. That's always helpful. It's easier when the current agency or company you're working for has an opening in leadership because they already know you. They know who you are. And a lot of places do like to hire from within if they can. But of course, they have to seek outside as well, to be fair. And they're going to publicize those positions. So I gave you a couple examples here from, just higher ed in general. If it's faculty, a lot of times it's an assistant chair or chair appointment that you might be looking for. On the staff side, let your supervisor know that you're interested in taking on more responsibilities. You don't tell them, they don't know. They can't read your mind. How you stand out as a woman? Gender really should not be a factor. This is huge for me. It should not be a factor in your candidacy for a position. If it is, you don't want to work there anyway. They should be looking at you for the credentials that are on your CV and who you are in that interview, and that's that. If you sense anything otherwise, you do not want to work there. You don't. And be as good as your counterparts and your colleagues, and the rest is history. You are your own best advocate. So do you have kids? Do you have other things going on in your life? None of that should matter. None of it. I have 2 kids, 10 and 7, and they're my whole world. And I'm dealing with balancing them in school, not in school, working a full-time job, all these other pieces. I'm married. I have a husband. He's amazing. He helps out too. But it's a balancing act. Both of our careers, you have to be fair with taking care of the kids. I believe in family-friendly environment when it comes to my team. I would never let them feel like having a family or having any other issue would be a reason for them to not be promoted. You can't do that, first of all, legally. But it should never be, it should be something that's embraced and it's something that's wonderful about them. I highlighted the bottom part of this slide because I think it's really important. I mentioned this before. I've worked my butt off to get where I am. And, I could always work harder. I believe that I could continue to work harder. But I know my team appreciates me. I know they feel supported. I have the emails and the conversations that they share with me, and that means the world to me. They've walked through fire for me, but they also know I would walk through it for them, and will do it again. And it's really important that your team knows that you support them. So if you're going into an interview for a leadership position, what that company needs to know about you before you walk out of the room is that not only can you do the job, but you want them to know how passionate you are about what their mission is, about supervising employees and empowering them to do better. Understand the role that you're going into and make sure it's something that you really want. Leadership is not for everyone. I would be lying if I said everybody can do it. Everybody cannot do it. There are certain character and personality traits that make some people better at it than others. And I really think that, you have to look in the mirror and say, can I be that person? People who are not afraid to be extroverts and really kind of get out there. Now, I have some introvert friends that are amazing leaders and they have their own style and they're amazing as well. It's just about embracing the stresses that go along with it and making sure you can handle that. That's the part that comes with it, because there are some politics in leadership, as you may know, and that's the part that you have to navigate. So I am going to end my slides and I'm going to stop sharing so that you can see me. I'm back. And I want to take some questions from you guys. I always love to kind of share some things with you and then answer some questions because you've got some specific things that I can answer for you.
Yep, we already have a question. So
Hey.
Pilar, Can you hear me okay? Pilar says, how important is membership in professional organizations and professional leadership training offered by these organizations?
So it really depends on the position that you're going after. Memberships are great. You know, I have a couple of memberships, but I don't make that a huge, you know, like thing that I go after necessarily. There's been different stages in my life and different positions where memberships were maybe more important. It's all about understanding like what's required for the job. If memberships are required for the job and certifications are required for the job, then yeah, you need to get those. But it really depends. Maybe give me more information about maybe what it is, and then I can answer that a little bit further. Like if it's real estate, you might need to be a member of that real estate, you know. That would be important.
Question from Cassandra. How do you find mentors in a completely online university setting?
Oh, Cassandra, that's a great question. So I would seek out whoever is in leadership. So like, let's say I did your job, right? So, and I'm in charge of all these wonderful seminars and different things. I would seek out the person that was in charge of that and say, you know, how can I be more a part of that? Or, you know, how can I learn from this? Look for who's in leadership over the area that you're in, and that's where you need to start. Or look for a senior staff or faculty member that may have some knowledge, and that's someone you can start with. And then you'll be able to kind of just tell. It is tough in the online environment because it's harder to get to know people. But, you know, Skype and Teams and you know, even Zoom, all these different options are out there now where you can have calls, and people are pretty comfortable doing it too.
I think most people are flattered, you know, to be asked to be a mentor for sure.
Absolutely.
Question from Greg. Most of this presentation discussed characteristics or behaviors of leaders, but you discussed leadership positions at the end. Are you defining leader as a position or as something else?
So it could be both, right? So you don't have to actually be in a leadership position to be a leader. You're absolutely right. So great point there. And you know, while we talked about women a little bit in this presentation, these are really qualities for any leader, right? So it doesn't really matter who you are. But yeah, you know, a good example of that would be, you know, when I was reporting for the TV station, you know, technically I wasn't in a leadership position in terms of anybody that reported to me, but I was lead story every night. They leaned on me for the lead story every single night. So I had the pressure on me to come up with the best possible story every day to run the 6 o'clock news. So it's about having the best story. So I had to be a good writer. I had to go out there and get my stories done on time. So I had to hustle more than some of the other reporters did, but I wanted that coveted 6:02 slot and be top story. So yeah, leadership is not always about the actual role, but about the qualities and characteristics. Good point. Yes.
Okay, we have, I think this is a follow-on question about the certifications.
Okay.
Specifically leadership in education for preschool institutions like Head Start or other organizations.
Yeah, so that's going to be important in anything like that, anything education related. As many certifications as you can have is going to help you, especially on the payment portion, because a lot of times certifications will allow you to get a higher pay rate. It depends on the state and depends on the agency, but I'll give you an example here. Like if you're coming into work for a college or even the high schools here, the public school system, the more certifications, degrees, all that business, it goes into a pay scale that balances out what your offer actually ends up being. So it counts towards your credentials. So when let's say you're going to run a pre-K program or whatever it is, a child development facility, those certifications are probably going to put you a little bit higher than the person who doesn't have them. Let's say maybe you lack in job experience, but you have more certifications. They're then going to weigh those two people next to each other to say, okay, what do we want more? Do we care more about certifications or do we care more about on-the-job experience? And I will tell you, there is something to be said about job experience versus degrees and certifications and all these other things. I think it gets lost sometimes, what people have had experience doing. That's something that's very important to me, is experience.
When interviewing for a leadership position, what are the most important questions the interviewee should ask?
The interviewee should ask, what are you looking for in a leader that you want to hire? I ask that a lot of times for different positions that I hire for with leadership roles. I want my interviewees to be asking, I'm always saying to myself, okay, when I go into an interview, I know what I want them to know about me, but what are they looking for, right? So you ask that question, flip it on them and ask that question to say, what do you expect out of this person? What are you looking for? What are the characteristics and qualities? Ask it, they'll love it. And have questions. If you don't have questions in an interview, you're dead. Like, you have got to have questions. You are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you, and don't forget that.
What if you, this is from Cynthia, what if you don't know what direction you want to go in your career? So she's post-PhD, COVID-19 has given me the greatest stupor of thought. What advice would you give?
Well, I think at this point, probably some soul searching needs to be done, because you can't move until you create the path, right? So you have to decide where you want to go, which may mean a leap of faith, and kind of struggling through that to determine exactly where you want to go. So you just finished the PhD. So I'm quite curious, as a former reporter now, what was your PhD and what's your career path now? Those kinds of things. And are you currently teaching, or are you looking to teach? So those are some of the questions that I would have for you if I were mentoring you. I'd want to try to figure those things out and then try to help you forge that path. That's why the mentor is important. That might be what you need to do right now, is find a mentor to help you kind of figure out which direction you should go based on who you are and what your goals are.
Okay, Greg asks, what can male people managers do to help build women as leaders? I have one on my team who is perfect for advancement, but she is scared of taking a leap. I don't want to lose her, but it feels like a disservice to her to keep her in her current role.
Greg, I'd like to hire you right now, because that's awesome. So you need to have a very honest conversation with her, Greg, if you feel comfortable, and just say to her, hey, look, you would be great for this position. Here's why I know you can do it. And build her up. Just support her, be in her corner, and continue to build her up. That was the biggest thing Dr. Render did for me. He's why I have this job. I'll be very honest with you. He went to bat for me and said, I know she hasn't done this before, but she can do it. They were looking for one more year of experience than I had, but they took a chance on me. So build her up, support her, and then she has to make the decision ultimately herself. All you can really do is be there for her. I know you don't want to lose her, but the fact that you said exactly what you said, I don't want to lose her, but you're doing the right thing. Your heart is in the right place. And that's the most important thing about supporting your female colleagues, is just, letting them know, like, I see you, and I see you for the great work that you do. Not I see you because you're a woman. I see you for the amazing colleague that you are. I personally don't like to be defined by that, but other people are different.
Okay. Paulette asks, how do you let your leadership knowledge show when coworkers try to block your ability?
Great question. I cackle because that's happened before. So, I'm one of those people that sometimes you just have to listen and watch the other person just, it just kind of happens on its own organically sometimes. For the negative person that gets in your way, find a way through. Don't go around. Find a way through. And I'll tell you, the most challenging people that I've worked with in my career, in order to get where I wanted to go, I had to get them on my team and make it their idea. And that's the reality of it. Yep. Sometimes it's not pretty, but you figure out a way and go through.
Do what you got to do.
That's right.
The qualities of a leader, as well as the path to achieve leadership roles, are largely based on an outdated male model that has historically shut women out. How have you overcome barriers to leadership, i.e. old stereotypes, bias, discrimination, etc.?
Hard work, determination, and aligning myself with people who I knew could help me move forward. So my president here at this institution is the first female president of this institution in the 50 plus years that it's been around. So she's a game changer, which is why she's so special to me. I think things are changing. Like, I'm very lucky at the institution that I'm at. You know, our president is a woman. My vice president of academic affairs is a woman. Our VP of student affairs is a woman. Are you sensing a trend? So we've kind of flipped that old model that you're talking about upside down. And it's not about male, female per se. It's about who's the best, you know, and that's just how it's worked out. In areas where it is still very much so what you're talking about, you have to determine if that's the environment you want to be in. You can recreate your own environment. If you have the ability to forge a new path somewhere else where that's not going to be a barrier, I would urge you to do so. You don't want to be at a place where you've got walls up. Find the doors.
Okay. Question for Pilar, and again, I think this is following on from the previous question about certifications. Consider the American Association for Women in Community Colleges. They offer memberships, trainings, and networkings. Do you see any of these as valuable for a former community college faculty member who left to complete the EDD in higher education leadership and seeks a leadership position?
Yeah, I mean, it could be good. If it's active in the state that you're in, and a lot of your potential colleagues as you're going back into higher ed, if they're in there, yeah, I think it could be valuable. On a resume, if memberships aren't like a key thing that they're looking for, then I wouldn't really worry about it. The other thing I would caution you on memberships is it varies from state to state, but some states don't, like once you become an employee there, they're not going to pay those membership fees for you. You have to carry them. So that's the other thing, is you have to determine, do I still want to carry these, certifications or membership fees or whatever they are. Like here in South Carolina, we have, it's a technical college membership. So it's really just educators all within that. And we have an annual conference where we have presentations, and it's very valuable. And I've been a member of that for years, and it's called SCTEA. And I will always be a member of that as long as I live in South Carolina and I'm in higher ed. It's an important one. I think you really have to just determine like if it holds value, and if you can get any professional development out of it that you think is beneficial. That's always important. What are you getting out of it?
Question from Zoanne. When it comes to job experience, what about changing career paths? How do you explain how previous experience will transfer to a new position? Does it matter to you if my experience isn't exactly a match for the job description?
It does matter to me. It matters a lot because it also shows me, when I hire people, I look at the resume and I look for gaps. And that's one of the first things I always ask an applicant, or if they do like a radical change in their career path. Because for us, like I was saying earlier, the more experience you have, like in a certain area, and then you credentials, there's a formula that we can pay you more depending on if you have direct experience with the actual position. It happens all the time. I'll have an applicant put in an application, and they leave off like 3 jobs from forever ago because they didn't think they were valid or made any sense. Well, we find out later in the interview process that, oh no, we could have bumped them another $1,000 or $1,500 if they would have included that after they mentioned it. I have to have them go back and put it on the application. My point is, show as much job history as you can, because what you think isn't relevant might actually be more relevant than you would imagine. Just be as honest and truthful as you can. Now, gaps. This happens all the time. I'll see like a 2-year gap, a 3-year gap, or whatever, and it's a female candidate. Where would my mind maybe wander? Did they take some time off to care for a relative or a child or whatever? So should that be a reason why I don't hire them? Of course not. But I will ask about what the gap is, because I do want an honest answer, because I want to make sure that they didn't lose a job and then couldn't find one for 3 years. Now, if they decided to just not work for a few years, and I had one recently that I hired, she took off 2 years because she worked on a novel, but she didn't put it on her application. I really wish she would have, because she teaches English. So it's relevant that she was working on a novel, So, just be honest and truthful. And an employer that asks you questions and actually genuinely seems like they care about you and what's on there is a good sign.
I love that someone who stopped to write a novel, because I have a friend who did that as well. I thought it was like super impressive,
Yeah.
I
was like, as soon as I left the interview, I went and looked it up, and I was like, sweet, this is really
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
She really wrote a really cool novel.
With COVID, I had to make the decision to leave my organization to focus on my family. My long-term aspiration is leadership. What are some things that I can do during this time since I'm not working?
Well, I think one of the things you can do is decide when you are ready to go back to work. Where do you want to go? What are you missing that you didn't have before that you want now? I think you can reconfigure your path. You know, this is a good time for reflection. It's also a good time to maybe seek out a mentor. Now, mentors don't have to be people in your professional life. They can be people in your personal life. My grandmother was the best mentor. I did not include her, and she'd be really mad at me, I just realized. She is 96 and she's feisty. But she's been one of my biggest mentors. So people in your life that you wouldn't necessarily think could help you through this different time, I think you really can lean on that. You know, it's also a good time to reinvent yourself. You know, what have you been thinking about doing that you just haven't done or made an excuse not to do or whatever? Do it. What's stopping you?
Okay, and I think we have one final question, and then we'll probably be right on time. Jasmine asks, how do you infiltrate your business or stand out in an area that is not familiar with your type of business?
You're going to have to give me another example. Can you share a bit more?
Yeah. Jasmine, if you could share a little bit more, a specific behind that.
I'm intrigued. You have my attention, Jasmine.
But yeah, because I think I've interviewed a couple of people who maybe had some experience in an area that I had no experience in. And I think the key to that was them being able to speak my language to help me understand.
Yeah, bridge the gap. Yeah. And I think that's that's an important thing. I think people have forgotten how to sell themselves. So I've had a lot of interviews lately that were really great, but I've also had a lot of interviews with candidates lately that were really bad, where it was almost like they forgot how to articulate who they are as a person. And I chalk it up to maybe nerves. I don't know. But then just some of the, just simple things like eye contact and being personable and being appropriately dressed. Oh, heavens, people. Wear a suit, wear something businessy, with the part. That's the thing. Walk the walk, talk the talk. That's the key. Sell it. Be who you are. But also, leaders have to have a certain stature. They have to be confident, and they have to not be afraid. And you can be afraid on the inside, just not here. You can't let anybody see that. Just poker face.
And I'll do a little selling here of our one of our group in the Commons, the Career Resource Collaborative. We have a ton of tips and resources in there on those kind of basic interview tips, how to dress, all that good stuff, kind of those basics. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Jasmine, she just mentioned she had moved to a new state and she's trying to educate others on her services, and it's been difficult.
Market yourself, young lady. Get your materials, reach out. Don't take no for an answer. Get in there. Don't be too aggressive, but be aggressive, if that makes sense. Just get to know people. Create a network. If there's any kind of group there, like a BNI or something like that, or Rotary, get involved. Like join one of those, get to know people, sell your services. I also have a marketing agency on the side because I'm that crazy. And I have clients in this area, and it was never really anything I marketed. It was all word of mouth. You get one or two people involved in what you do and you do it well, they're going to tell other people, and that's just going to spread. I wish you luck on your venture in the new state. I know that's tough, but you'll be all right. You can do it. I believe in you.
All right. Well, wonderful. That was all our questions. So we are right on time. As a reminder, this is being recorded. So again, give us 24 hours and we will have it up on the Commons if you want to check it out or recommend it to anyone else. But huge thanks to Dr. Howell for coming here today and sharing all her expertise. And thank you to everyone who attended, and great questions, great comments. We really appreciate you all. And everyone have a great evening and great rest of the week.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure. Okay.